Hello, everyone. This is Milagros Siriano Rivera. I want to welcome you to another mini interview series, Living the Legend, where we are going to be highlighting the powerful impact of the Color of Woman teacher training, the certification program. And I want to welcome you to this session today. I am again Milagros Siriano Rivera. I am a Color of Woman teacher and guild member. I graduated in 2019. And I am so excited that today we are going to be interviewing the wonderful, wonderful Cosmic Cowgirl and Color of Woman teacher, Annette Wagner. But before we start our interview, I want to invite you all to be connected and to land in this space where we're going to share these beautiful bits of information, story, and wisdom. I have a candle lit for us to represent our connection. And I also burned some sage to call in all the beautiful energy and just get us ready for our time together. So, Annette, to start us off, I would love if you would please introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hello, everyone. Um, I am a working artist and an intentional creativity teacher, and I live in Montana. I used to live in California, but I somehow got myself out of high-tech land and ended up here. And what can I say about me? I am a cosmic cowgirl. I think I recognized that pretty early on, and I like to say I'm a card-carrying cosmic cowgirl, and I will be one for forever because that's who I am. And I used to work in high tech. I have 21 patents. Some of you who use computers probably use some of the technology that I work on, especially if you're on a Macintosh. And so one day my life took a huge left turn, but we'll talk more about that as we dive into interview land.
Wow, that sounds awesome just to know you have that legacy of technology. It's just a beautiful thing about how we live life, and those are the things that we carry with us, that help mold us a bit. Um, so I would definitely love to connect with you on that and hear that story. Um, I'm hailing from San Antonio, Texas, and I'm standing in the land of the Tankawa. And I want to honor them and our ancestors as we move forward, and definitely give honoring and homage to our lineage, Shiloh Sophia, and who's the founder of Intentional Creativity, which simply means for us to create with love and intention, and her teachers and her mother. We have Sue Hoya Sellers, and we have Karen McLeod, who's Sophia's mother, and also Eleanor Strauss, who taught uh, Sue, who taught Shiloh. So, and Shiloh has then passed on all this beautiful wisdom to us, and we are so proud to carry that lineage forward. So speaking of Shiloh, how did you come to meet her?
So that left turn I happened to mention took place in 2008. And I was in high tech land, and basically felt like my creativity was dying. And I've always been a very highly creative person. And I discovered this master's degree in women's spirituality that had all kinds of intriguing things that they taught you. And it was a very academic program. It was deeply transformative. And one of the classes that was taught in the first year was called Art as a Sacred Practice. And there was this woman named Shiloh Sophia who taught it. And I went into the class with my cohort. There were about 12 or 15 of us. I don't even remember exactly how many of us at this point. And I dove into it, and I swear I grinned the entire weekend. I it was just like everything resonated in my heart so much that by the time I left to go home that weekend, my face hurt because I'd been smiling so much. And this was in direct contrast to several of my classmates who resisted Shiloh at every step of the way through the process.
Mm.
And at that point, Shiloh was teaching in the with the 13-step process, but she was not out there doing any training at that point in time. So that was where I initially met Shiloh.
Mm. Wow. And I can that resonates with me, that smiling, because I had the same experience my first time meeting Shiloh and being in circle with the wonderful women in MUSEA. Like, it just filled my heart, and I was touched in a way that I had never been touched in my life, you know. So, and thus began my journey.
When you meet your tribe, it just resonates in your heart.
Oh, so. Yeah. And you don't realize you need a tribe until you meet them. Definitely. So, yeah. I'm thinking, because a lot of times things happen, and they happen when we need the most. And sometimes we just put them off as coincidences. And I know when we were preparing for the interview earlier on, you did allude to how the timing was right, and you seem to have been at the right place at the right time. You want to talk a little bit about how that impacted you?
Yes. So as I mentioned, I was at this place working in high-tech land where I just felt like my creativity was dying. And I'd always, my entire life, wanted to work as an artist. And for a variety of reasons, one of which was an interaction with my father when I was 5 years old, I somehow as a child was left with this impression that I should never work at something where that I wouldn't be able to survive if I did something where I only worked with my hands. And that had sent me off on this tangent where I ended up in high-tech land. And my adventure through high-tech land was a series of being in the right place at the right time. I had learned calligraphy and lettering when I was in college. And there was this little dinky company that needed someone to come in and create bitmap typefaces. This is before the days of the laser writer and outline typefaces. And one of my teachers asked me if I'd be interested. Well, that little dinky company was Apple.
Wow.
And it was a case of being in the right place at the right time. In the master's program, when I connected up with the professors in the master's program, I had the same kind of feeling. Like, I remember I was in a marriage with a husband that was not particularly supportive, and I was trying to get to the open house. And he was, of course, late getting home from work, and we had a very young child. And I scooted in at like 5 minutes past the hour of when it had actually started. But one of the professors had saved me a chair. And it was like, I sat down and was like, yes, I'm here. Well, that proceeded to continue to happen as I went forward. One of the experiences I had in the master's program was that I met Suhoya Sellers. Shiloh had dragged Sue along to come help in her class. And the second time that I took her class, Sue came along with Shiloh. And she just scared the hell out of me. She was intimidating. She was like a real artist, you know?
Bigger than life, huh?
She would come up behind me and we'd have this conversation about my painting, and she'd say, now I want you to do this, and now I want you to do that. And she even lent me one of her brushes. And later I remember Shiloh saying to me, she doesn't ever lend anyone her brushes. That terrified me even more. But I went on to do an independent study with Sue. And I interviewed Sue and got the story of when she first met Lenore Strauss, and had this amazing, she became one of my mentors along with Shiloh. And it was just this whole series of connecting in with these people that at that point we didn't call it intentional creativity, but connecting in with the Cosmic Cowgirls and connecting in with all this, that just, I was learning to let my heart lead and my mind support. And I was still in that process, but all of this just resonated. Like Stella Mack will often say this, Mary McDonald will say, you need to feel for the things that tug you forward. Well, I kept getting a lot of serious tugs forward.
Yes. And learning how I witnessed you in that. That's just such an awesome story. And that, what you say about, where the heart leads and let the mind, support you. And it's like the core of intentional creativity, where anything that we want to bring in or work with, we're taught to bring it to our heart first, and then let our mind support us and give us the foundation and the structure for bringing that into whatever form it is that we're working on. So that's just so beautiful how, you were on it, and that's where you were, and you were following your heart. And the story about the chair and the professor holding a chair for you, and it's just like in our circle where there's always a seat at the table, for those who choose to answer the calling. So it's just really great that you shared that story. It's just so in the line. So I know that you've been with since the beginning. You're one of the first graduates of the original Color of Woman training program and class. And you gave us that's your legend from back then, or is
No,
that your current legend?
this is the current legend. I've done several legends over the years. I suppose I could have dug them all out, but I figured I'd just stay with the current one. But yeah, this is my current legend. You want me to talk about her for a little bit?
Sure, please.
So I have to give a little bit of context here as well. So every time I start a painting with Shiloh, I follow a very shamanic path, and it's always about being in connection with the earth, and deepening my connection with the earth. Some of you may have seen some of my earth prayers that I post periodically in different forums, and those are all that practice, which I teach, is all about deepening your connection to the earth. So whenever I painted a painting, it always felt like I was going off on another journey, right? And I was painting in acrylics since 2008, and then in 2014 I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I have a wacky immune system, and I had to stop painting acrylics. Even wearing gloves, I had to give my body time to come back into balance with what was going on and get everything settled down. So I've only been back to painting acrylics in the last year and a half, probably, where I've been able to get back to it. And I wear gloves because I'm very conscious of, what my body can tolerate and what it can't tolerate. And I've noticed that with this coming back to it, that everything is deeper. That sojourn where I wasn't painting, I was off doing ink and watercolor paintings, which in more of the Japanese and Chinese Asian practices, which Sue started me on. She's the one who started me on doing little sumi drawings and paintings, which I ended up calling earth prayers. Karen McLeod's the one who told me I had to add words and poetry to them. I feel like you're going, yes, sir, but it's yes, ma'am. So I had that background of working. I worked with another master in that area, Mei Shi, who's a renowned artist of herself in the Asian watercolors, and picked that all up. And then I brought it all back. So when I did this legend, and her name is, she didn't give me her name. The title of the piece is Peering Through the Veil. And when Shiloh this was the Mystic Legend that we did last November. And when Shiloh was, giving us the videos and we were walking through it, these days, I've done this often enough that I know that what I have to do is I have to listen to what she's putting out there as an inquiry, and then come back and go inside my heart and ask, what is this all about? And there is always a conversation going on. So there's all kinds of crazy things that ended up in this painting. There's lizards at the top who are just peeking in from the very top, and there's a flicker wing over here. And I found a dead flicker out in our ranch. We live in the Bitterroot Valley in the land of the Salish people, and flickers are the symbol of good luck.
Mm.
One of their meanings. And there's this like little bit of almost water energy that came in, and then there's this butterfly down here that came in down here, and you can't really see the bottom perhaps very well because it's painted over. But there were these 7 prophetess, and I can't even remember all the names. Provocateur. They were all these archetypes that came in. Well, I didn't put them in my journal and play with them like Shiloh suggested. I put them on the bottom of the canvas, and I remember Trish saying, "Oh, you put a comic strip on the bottom?" Like, that was outrageously hilarious. Yes. And I didn't. Every single time I went to put my brush on the canvas, I sunk into the flow, and I didn't ask what I wanted. I didn't ask what she wanted. I said, what is wanted? I tried to be in this place of not being attached to anything, and then to just let my heart lead me. And I mean, all kinds of crazy shit showed up on that canvas, and it was like not at all what I expected. In fact, this face, the fact that it's only just these like funny eyes peering through, it was like I kept asking her, like, well, what's that about? And she kept saying, well, I'm just kind of peeking through the backside of the universe to see what the heck's going on. So I have a video of the process of creating her, and I tell a little bit of the story about her on my website because she has a very strong voice, which all legends seem
Oh,
to
that's
do.
awesome. Oh, yes, definitely. If you'd like to share your website in the cafe, so that anyone that wants to see it, they can definitely follow that. I would love to watch it. Yep. That's awesome though. But I like where where we learn to usually ask the painting what it wants, because a lot of times when we try to, step into our own minds, that's where the critic kicks in. But if you're talking to the painting and asking the painting to reveal it, and you just took it a step further, you're like, well, it's not me or the painting, it's just the energy. What is it that wants to show up? And that's just, I mean, she's beautiful. She is beautiful. I love the colors, and her eyes are just like really searching. She's like, what's she doing? What's she doing? Oh, that is just so awesome. I love that. Yeah, and that's something Trish would say. And you've explained the symbols. Is there any specific impact or any powerful message or impact that painting that came forth for you during the process at that time?
When moving up here to Montana was a big deal. I'm a native-born Californian and the land that I was raised on became Silicon Valley. So everything changed there. And so moving up here was a huge step for me. And I felt like there was a lot of expectations that I had put on myself about being an artist, and how I was presenting to the world, that I needed to simply drop away, to really be as true to myself as I possibly could. And that part of what she was saying was, don't get in the way. Sometimes Shiloh talks about like being an observer as opposed to being the one who's painting it. And in a way, that was kind of what I felt like I had to do, was to learn to, I don't know how to describe it. It's this funny sensation. It's very organic of both stepping away from it, being an observer, but being in the midst of it at the same time. Like, allow yourself to be completely in the flow, but to not be attached to anything that appears on the canvas. And in fact, when things like the flowers appeared up there, it was like, yeah. No, like what the heck are you doing? And it would be like, no, let go, just let that go, let it be whatever the heck it wants to be. And
Yes.
it was very freeing for me to do that in the process and to listen to her voice and to realize that her voice is my voice in some ways, and to let go of those expectations and just say, I don't care. Because as a working artist, always had this thing about, but I have to sell my artwork. I just, nope. Just release all of that, let it go. This is a story that happens to be taking place on a canvas. And it has a message for me, and I just need to chill.
Yeah, yeah, get the message first. I witnessed you, and that's just so true how we tend to step in our own way. And, I experience and working with a lot of the other women that are taking the course or any of, Shiloh's paintings and this style of intuition and, being the observer. It takes a while to turn that off, and you're so busy trying to, when you put a flower on the canvas, like, I want a butterfly. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, you want to understand why. It's like, is that what you want? Is that what the painting wants? It's like, and we tend to get a little stuck there. And once you learn to surrender to that process of whatever showed up, I'm not even trying to understand it. You're just trying to listen to it and then be willing to let it go if it finds itself as the foreground, because it's just such an energetic move. And a lot of times we get stuck on what does it mean, in that sense, or why is it relevant to the painting? And or once they put in, they're like, so in awe of the fact that they painted that flower or that bird because they never painted one before. Now the thought of Shiloh saying, oh, now we're going to integrate. And just
Yes. As an art doctor, I do very much understand these.
Yes, exactly. And as as being one of our most beloved art doctors in our community that help us walk through that, I've learned so much from you. And I myself, I'm grateful for your wisdom and advice and guidance in that, because I love that step. For some reason, most of my paintings will have at least 6 layers of integration. I don't even know what I'm integrating half the time. I just go off and like, you know what? It doesn't feel right. Here, to slap on some quinacridone red, and I'll paint a couple more, and then there goes some purple. I'll start off with a pink painting and it'll turn into gold or blue. And I love it because it just keeps me in the mystery. And I'm learning to not be attached, like you said, and once you have that freedom, it's like, wow, you know it's just beautiful. I love what came up for you. I so do. um you mentioned something about dress.
Yes.
And I remember you alluded to how this changed you, taking the color of woman, and after, while you graduated or during the process, how you started showing up differently. What did you mean?
So, as you might imagine, I worked in high tech, and I didn't wear business suits. I was a human interface engineer, but I worked with a bunch of guys in software engineering, and it was not an environment that was conducive to supporting the feminine. I will say it that way. There was a lot of push comes to shove because human interface designers weren't respected, because women weren't as respected. And there was a particular way I dressed that tended to be a little bit more business-like, if you will. Mm-hmm. Then I went off into the women's spirituality program, where I felt like I got completely pulled, all the layers got pulled and stripped off, and I had to go really, really deep. And I literally stopped wearing my bra and was wearing a completely different set of clothing than I had done before, because I was very raw in some ways. I wanted to get down to the deepest part of me. And I came out of that, and I ended up getting divorced the same time I was graduating. And I was a single mom, and I had a young child who was in elementary school. And she was in 3rd grade when all of it went down. And I needed to figure out who I was now. So one of the things that happened was I graduated in 2010, and it wasn't too long after that I think Shiloh sent out this invite, and she was going to start the training for the first time. And I think I shared this bit with you before earlier about how my logical brain was going, no, you can't sign up for that. That's too much money, and you've already got a job, and you've got to do this, and it's like this whole list of objections. At the same time, which my heart just walks over, picks up the pen, and starts filling out the application, and this is battering away. Like, shut up already! And I just, and it was so much like, yes, I want to do this. I don't care that I can't afford it. And I sent the
Mm.
application off. In fact, I filled that thing out. I mean, it was this huge, long on paper application because the training and everything was very different back then. It's
Mm.
gotten so much richer and deeper and wonderful since then. And in the course of the training, I realized that I was starting to wear clothing when I went to the gatherings because our training was all in person. Um, I was starting to like wear different kinds of more wild clothing when I went to the gatherings. And Shiloh and Mary actually commented on it. And they were like, yes, you need to do this. And it was like, oh. And I started going to like thrift stores and trying to come up with the most outrageous things. In fact, I had this pale pink ruffled mini skirt, like chiffon ruffles all over it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I wore that thing to death. Shiloh just wore it. And I just started going for the wild, and then the wild started showing up in the rest of my life. Like I still have a black leather miniskirt, which I think I can fit in. I have to go see. I haven't tried that one in a while. And I remember Karen McLeod saying, black lace always works. So I would go out and hunt up all kinds of lacy things that I could wear as like dresses over something else. And it was really interesting because I was very hung up on how other people perceived me, that I didn't have a good idea of how they perceived me. And then one day I went, why does that matter?
Mm.
You know, like it really doesn't matter how other people perceive me. What matters how I perceive myself, how I love myself, how I support myself. And the clothing was all about me supporting me in the way that I wanted to be, my passionate creative self. I'd always been pushed down. I was raised by a very autocratic father who was a World War II vet with anger management issues.
Mm.
I worked in this very male environment. I had brothers that always told me when I was a kid that I couldn't do something because I was a girl. And suddenly dressing differently was like opening the jacket and saying, no, there's something else underneath here, people. And at the same time was, and I realized that no, Cosmic Cowgirls was my tribe. This was where I was meant to be.
Oh,
So,
yes. I'm so glad you answered that call. That's an awesome story of you just standing in your yes and saying, you know what, look out, world, here I am, here I come, whether you like it or not.
yep.
Oh, yeah. If you left it up to me, I'd be dressed in paint clothes all the time. But, hubby likes me to get dressed just to go to the supermarket. So I end up changing 3 times a day because he doesn't want me going, with my painted boots and my busted jeans and a shirt with paint all over it just to go get a dozen of eggs. so I have that challenge, but I definitely feel free when I dress in my paint clothes and
Yeah.
just this is where I want to be and how I want to feel. I feel comfortable because I'm doing what I love. So I definitely appreciate that share. And I also appreciate what you said about, especially from your perspective, being one of the first to you can appreciate the journey that, we've taken and how Color of Woman, the training has grown and gotten richer and more, just potent and valuable. And how what you learned then, you're still working with and you're still bringing out, and being able to take legend every year is like a reset, and for you to go back to that, and then you just add a little bit more to that, right?
Yep. Yep.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Wow. If you had a message for anyone considering taking the Woman of Color training that starts this October 1st, what would it be?
To give yourself permission to allow your heart to lead you and to trust the journey. There will be points in the journey where it will feel like your boat just submerged and you're hanging on for dear life. And just stay on the flow and trust, because it's meant to be a deep journey and it's well worth it. And we will all be there to support you. You won't drown when the boat flips over. But we might let you dabble in the water for a little bit just so you get an understanding. Students are going to feel like that too. So that's the art doctor hat. I'll take that off now.
Oh, let us breathe that in. Wow, this has been the yummiest interview yet. So much that what you said resonated with me on my journey, and I'm just looking forward to the continuation and the growth of our community and everyone that steps on this path. It's just such a powerful course. It's truly life-changing, and I'm actually glad that we're in a community where it's not just us, and they like, you know what, don't take it from us, take it from everybody else who's been on this journey. Like,
exactly.
It's just so worth it. And the investment in self is the key. We have to say yes and invest in ourselves, and just trust that if that's what our heart wants, everything we need to make that happen is going to be provided.
Yep.
You'll be supported along the way. Everything is going to be great. Oh, Annette, you have been wonderful. You have been wonderful. I want to thank you so much for sharing your Color of Woman journey, your journey into intentional creativity, and all the support that you give our community. Oh, so if anyone watching has questions for Annette, definitely feel free to post them into the chat, not the chat, but the in the thread, in Red Thread Cafe classroom. And I'm sure that Annette will definitely have no issue with responding and sharing. And you'll share your website with us if you want. You can do that now.
My website is very easy. It's www. and it's Annette Wagner Art, ART.com. So it's pretty easy to figure out my website. But I will also, I'm not in Facebook at the moment, but I will get myself over there and go take a peek.
Not a problem. And we will definitely make sure they get that. If you want to learn more about the Color of Women training, it does start October 1st. However, we have already opened for the invitation for priority registration. So if you're interested and want to get more information, you can find out at www.colorofwoman.com/invitation. Okay, and everything you need to know about the course will be there, the timings, all of the support you're going to get. There'll be Zoom calls over the 9 months that will be on this journey. It is a 9-month course, but again, you'll have all the support. It's guided by Shiloh and a wonderful support and guild team that will be there. It's I can't talk enough about it. So and I'm sure I may be missing one or two things. So definitely go to the site and check it out for yourself and see the wonderful, rich, information and that you'll get from it. Let's see, did I forget anything? So it starts October 1st, and registration is now open for the early registration. I think that's it. We just oh, living the legend is such a wonderful thing. It beats just being, you know, going through life just not knowing. I like where we are. I love the wonderful women that we meet, and I love what we're doing together. So I want to thank you again, Annette, for your story and for joining us and helping us, share how Color of Women training and intentional creativity has changed our lives.
You're very welcome.
All right. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. And with that, I want to leave you and say, may love be at the center of all our choices.